continent. Hello, I'm Alison LaGrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison LaGrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. French President Emmanuel Macron accuses Russia of terror and barbarism, while the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says Vladimir Putin is sabotaging peace after Russian missile and drone strikes on Kiev killed 14 and damaged the British Council office and an EU mission. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will attend a major military parade in China next week, alongside Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, to mark 80 years since the end of World War II. Israel says its forces are operating in all combat zones after Syrian state media reported an Israeli ground raid on a site already bombed outside Damascus. The first group of 7 migrants arrives in Rwanda under a deal to accept third country deportees from the United States. And Uganda's ruling party endorses President Yoweri Museveni as its candidate for next year's general election. It will be his 7th term as leader of the East African nation. Hello and welcome. Let's begin with Kenya. The country's presidential election is around 2 years away, but the battle to dethrone President Ruto is already shaping up. And the latest entry into the race is Ruto's top critic, Boniface Mwangi. A prominent human rights activist, Mwangi seeks to run for the presidency in 2027. He made the announcement on Katiba Day, which is marking the anniversary of Kenya's 2010 constitution.
I have selected this great day to announce that I'm going to be running for the President of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you. Thank you.
Mwangi urged Kenyans to take back control of their country, which has faced waves of deadly protests since last year. The latest one broke out just a few weeks back. Months of protests have killed over 100 people so far. From crippling high cost of living, unemployment and corruption, to police brutality and violent suppression of dissent, the Kenyan youth is growing frustrated with the Ruto government over many things. In his address, Mwangi attacked the Ruto government for driving the country into such a crisis.
As a country, we are broke, we are hungry, and insecure. Despite the so many called police reforms, the police has never been of service. The rule of law is broken. Justice has a price that only the rich can afford.
Rights groups have also slammed the Ruto government for slapping terrorism charges on anti-government protesters. Mwangi himself was accused of terrorism over recent protests, but the charges were later dropped due to a lack of evidence. He was instead charged with unlawful possession of ammunition in July. For years, Mwangi has faced tear gas, jail time, as he spoke out against corruption and police violence, not just in Kenya, but also abroad. Back in May, Mwangi was detained in Tanzania. He went there to attend the treason trial of the opposition leader Tundu Lissu. Mwangi said that he and his fellow Ugandan activists faced torture and sexual abuse while in the custody of the Tanzanian police. He accused the Ruto government of plotting against him.
Our country is no longer safe. A few months ago, I was stripped naked, shamed, and humiliated because my government conspired with the Tanzanians. But I survived because of your love and your courage, and that's why I'm here.
Mwangi has promised Kenyans that he would make things right if he is elected as the country's president. This is not the first time Mwangi has attempted to enter Kenyan politics. Back in 2017, Mwangi ran for the parliament on an anti-corruption platform, but his bid was unsuccessful. And now he is trying again. This time it's for the president's position. Mwangi has announced his presidential bid with pomp and show. But this is just the beginning. His candidacy is yet to be cleared by the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission. It is the body that qualifies all candidates. Mwangi has a long way to go before winning Kenya's presidential race, and it seems to be a tough one. President Ruto himself is seeking re-election, despite all the protests and public outcry against his government. Elections in Kenya are due in August of 2027, and the race is already heating up. Now it remains to be seen if Ruto's critics can actually dethrone him and do any better for the country, which is reeling under violence and uncertainty. For our next story, let's turn our attention to South Africa, which is facing 30% US tariff. Relations between the two countries are hitting a new low every day. Pretoria has now slammed Washington's resettlement of white Afrikaners as Apartheid 2.0. Since taking office in January, Trump stopped the refugee arrivals in the US, but he made an exception for South Africa's white Afrikaner community. In May, the Trump administration offered refugee status to white Afrikaners, claiming that they faced discrimination and genocide back at home. The US is also reportedly applying for visas for around 30 people from a Christian NGO based in Kenya to come to South Africa and fast-track the processing of Afrikaner applications for resettlement. Trump is presenting himself as a savior of Afrikaners, allegedly facing persecution in South Africa. But the Ramaphosa government has strongly rejected Trump's white genocide claims, calling them ironical. Now, this is because Afrikaner-led governments were in fact the architects of apartheid. The system denied South Africa's black majority political and economic rights until it was voted out in 1994 after a long struggle. Relations between the US and South Africa have hit a new low since Trump's return to the White House. In March, Washington expelled Pretoria's ambassador. Trump is unhappy with South Africa's policies, especially the ones that seek to undo the damage done by apartheid. Now, this includes policies promoting black business ownership and the redistribution of farmland, still mostly in the hands of whites. Trump says that the policies of South Africa's black-led government are anti-white and anti-American. And to prove his white genocide claims, Trump had put up a dramatic show in an Oval Office meeting with Ramaphosa in May. He played a video featuring South Africa's firebrand opposition leader, Julius Malema, singing an anti-apartheid song, "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer." Now, Boer refers to South Africa's minority white Afrikaner farmers. Back then, Ramaphosa had dismissed Trump's rhetoric. But now, in a major turn of events, a South African court found Malema guilty of hate speech for the comments that he made at a 2022 rally, which seemed to incite anti-white violence. At the rally, Malema referred to a 2020 fight between members of his party and white parents at his school who were accused of holding a whites-only dance party. Malema told his supporters that killing is part of a revolutionary act and you must never be scared to kill. Now, the court ruled that Malema's comments intended to incite harm and to promote hatred against the white people involved in the 2020 incidents. Malema's party, the EFF, has slammed the court's ruling. Meanwhile, Ramaphosa's coalition partner, the Democratic Alliance, has welcomed the ruling, calling it a victory against Malema's campaign to incite racial division. With external pressure from the Trump administration on the one side and internal conflicts and chaos on the other, South Africa's woes remain far from over. Our next story is from Mali, a Sahel nation that has deepened ties with Russia in recent years. One crucial aspect of this partnership has been Russia's fight against terrorists alongside the Malian army. Now, Russia's Wagner mercenaries played a key role in this fight until they quit Mali recently. They claim their mission is complete and called their retreat not a withdrawal, but a rebranding into a state-controlled force called Africa Corps. However, a new report says the reality is starkly different. It argues Wagner failed and left behind distrust and disorder in Mali. The report is from The Sentry, a US-based investigative group. It calls Wagner's time in Mali a multi-layered catastrophe for the people of Mali. The junta that brought them in, as well as for regional counter-terrorism and Russia's Africa strategy. The report highlights a series of Wagner failures. First is the military failures. It says Wagner failed to secure northern and central Mali from terror attacks. It suffered a crushing defeat at the Tinzoentene near the Algerian border in July last year, and that exposed its weakness. Then lack of air power, poor intelligence, and reliance on brutal tactics undermined operations. And then it talks about the civilian impact. It says civilian casualties in Mali rose after Wagner's arrival. Wagner used booby traps, drone strikes, and mass abuses. This broke trust between communities and the Malian army. Then it mentions internal divisions. Wagner deepened rifts within the junta. As per the report, Wagner troops even abused Malian soldiers. Chaos and rivalries grew inside the junta, and power struggles intensified as some leaders sought Russian backing. And lastly, the economic failures. Wagner tried to control mining, but the junta reportedly refused. The group failed to build lasting revenue streams, and it could not fund itself and was dependent on Moscow for salaries. Now, Wagner is a Russian private military company active in Africa, West Asia, and Ukraine. It entered Mali in 2022, promising to fight terrorists after the Bamako cut ties with the West. Now, 3.5 years later, Wagner declared success and handed over operations to Africa Corps. Wagner was semi-private, but Africa Corps is formally run by Russia's defense ministry. Fighters sign contracts directly with the state, ensuring loyalty to Moscow. Now remember, in 2023, Wagner once staged an armed revolt against Russia under Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, who mysteriously died in a plane crash soon after in August of 2023. While Wagner claimed it finished its job in Mali, the report says it failed to crush terrorists. It failed to win over Mali, and it also failed to profit. Yet, Russia's influence in Mali is only growing. Both countries are expanding ties in politics, defense, and economy. In June, the Malian leader, Assimi Goïta, met with President Putin in Moscow, signing new security and economic deals. Mali also announced a new state gold refinery in partnership with a Russian corporation. So, even as Wagner quietly fades into Africa Corps, Russia's footprint in Mali, politically and economically, is only getting stronger. And it's not just Russia. India, too, has been deepening partnerships with African nations, and this relationship has now crossed a new milestone, especially in the economic sector. India-Africa trade has surpassed $100 billion. New Delhi is now among the top 5 investors on the continent. The announcement was made by Union Minister Kirtivardhan Singh at an annual India-Africa Business Enclave in New Delhi.
On the trade and economic front, India's bilateral trade with Africa has crossed the magical figure of $100 billion in 2024-25, compared to $56 in 2019 and 2020, with cumulative investments of over $75 billion from 1996 to 2024. India is amongst the top 5 largest investors in Africa today.
Key trade sectors of this partnership include petroleum, machinery, pharmaceuticals, automobiles, textiles, agricultural products. India's major partners in Africa are Nigeria, South Africa, and Tanzania. And imports are dominated by fuel and resources. Exports range from raw goods to value-added products. India has extended more than $12 billion in concessional loans and $700 million in grant assistance for projects across Africa. The government also announced 50,000 scholarships for African youth. Over 42,000 have already been utilized. New Delhi maintains that India-Africa partnership is strong enough to withstand new challenges.
India and Africa are shaping a strong partnership to co-create a shared future built on mutual trust and collaborative efforts. Today, we have not only created a vibrant development cooperation together, but are also committed to shaping a brighter future for our generations to come. Our shared emphasis on trust and transparency makes India and Africa natural partners.
India is also ready to help Africa's energy transition by sharing clean energy technologies. Under India's G20 presidency, the African Union was given permanent membership. India's humanitarian role was also highlighted, from relief operations in Mozambique, Madagascar, and Mauritius, to inviting African nations into the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure and the International Solar Alliance. Prime Minister Modi has consistently kept Africa at the heart of his Global South agenda. He has pushed to see Africa not just as a supplier of raw materials, but as a leader in value creation and sustainable growth. Under his policy, India and Africa are partners in mutual trust, dialogue, and shared priorities. India is supporting Africa's own development goals in industrialization, healthcare, education, entrepreneurship, and digital cooperation. As both regions move forward, India-Africa ties are set to play a defining role in the future of the Global South. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.